Bungie released a new patch last week which brought along some major changes to the biggest pain points in Destiny 2, such as the portal, power leveling, and more. Today I wanted to discuss these changes to decide if they're good or bad for the game, then I wanted to discuss what else Bungie can do to make Destiny even better. To start with the first main pain point, we have power leveling. With the release of the Edge of Fate, Bungie made the decision to overhaul how power leveling works. With the release of the Edge of Fate, Bungie reset everyone's power level to 10, changed how players would acquire power levels, and changed how quickly players would get those power levels. The idea behind these changes would be to change the method of power leveling, especially since the Edge of Fate is the start of the next saga for Destiny. Unfortunately though, these changes that were made to power leveling were awful. The processes seemed to be similar to how it was prior to the Edge of Fate, being the first levels you go through would blow by fast, and once you reached a certain point, the process would be slowed down as you approach the end game. It was fairly similar from levels 10 to 200, but once you hit 200 the process was slowed down to a snail's pace and was made even worse once you reached 400. That said, Bungie has made some major changes to power leveling, mainly being that they increased the power boost from certain activities, but recently they've changed the pacing of the power leveling process. The process now works as follows. Levels 10 to 199 progress as fast as they usually have. From there, levels 200 to 499 are slowed slightly as you have to complete portal or raid and dungeon content to gain bonus power levels, which tends to require more time than just getting power boosts from any source. From there, levels 500 to 550 can only be progressed by getting tier 5s, but you'll have access to the ultimate difficulty, meaning tier 5 drops are guaranteed so you'll be leveling just fine. Additionally, Bungie added the Texan chest, which helped players catch up in power levels regardless of where you were sitting power-wise. Overall, this has proven to be a pleasant change for the game and its leveling pacing. Unfortunately, this change could come back to hurt Bungie, but we'll discuss that later in the video. Next, I wanted to discuss the portal, as this has proven to be the biggest issue with Destiny since the release of the Edge of Fate. The idea behind the portal was that Bungie wanted to create a hub that helped new players get caught up in Destiny, while also giving active players easy access to replayable activities. On paper, the system seemed like a great idea and seemed to address two issues that Destiny had been suffering from for years, being a terrible onboarding process for new players and the neglected core playlists, which are meant to keep Destiny players invested in the game during slower periods of content releases. Unfortunately, the system failed on both fronts. For the new player front, it failed to really do much other than show players the content players were on, but most of that new content is locked behind a paywall, meaning they're forced into portal activities that they won't fully understand due to not properly being equipped to approach the world of Destiny. For the replayability factor, Bungie kinda did this correctly. For the first few weeks of the Edge of Fate's release, players were actively replaying content in the portal, but that was mostly because these were the most efficient activities to level. The issue on hand was that the process was mind-numbing, and any other sources of leveling such as pinnacle activities would be too slow compared to the solo ops grind, and since tier 5 loot, the new pinnacle of loot in Destiny, doesn't start to drop consistently until the 400s, it meant that players were choosing to not play match-made content because it'd be too slow for power leveling. Additionally, the process of setting up portal activities was tedious since it was difficult to understand if the changes you were making to an activity benefited your power grinding without putting you into a horrendously over-leveled activity. That said, Bungie made changes for this area of the game. For starters, longer and more difficult content like Pinnacle Ops and Raid and Dungeon content has had its loot drops boosted, making these activities particularly more appealing for power leveling. Bungie also added fan-favorite activities from previous seasons into the portal to make them relevant again. Additionally, Bungie massively simplified the portal modifier process, making it easier to understand how a certain modifier affects your activity and power progression without playing tedious content. All of these changes being made has made the portal a much more enjoyable experience as a whole. Now, I know I've spent the entirety of this video showcasing the great changes made to the game recently, but there's still a problem. Player counts are still at an all-time low. Despite the changes that have been made, the player count hasn't budged much, which has led to an important question. Can Bungie save Destiny 2, or are these changes too little too late? And to be honest, the answer to that question is a little more tedious than some might let you believe. The changes Bungie has made to Destiny over the last few weeks have been great changes, and are massively improving the game, but at the same time, Bungie is continuing to shoot themselves in the foot in the process. Since the release of these changes, Bungie has announced that major additions made to the game, such as the introduction of unstable cores or the resetting of power levels heading into new expansions, are being walked back entirely, which proves to be great decisions in the short run, but what will happen in a month or two after the release of Renegades? While these changes make Destiny feel far more approachable at this moment, it might come back to bite Bungie later on. So what can they do? Well, I think it'd be smart for Bungie to rethink a way to deal with power leveling, whether that be finding a less harmful way to reset power, or just reworking the grind in general. Furthermore, while the portal in its current state is proving to be tolerable to the community, it still seems like this is a major pain point for the community, which gives the impression that the portal needs additional work. One change that was proposed that I think would be great is to change the portal's purpose to being the hub for older content to exist in. There have been activities from previous seasons that players have enjoyed or still need, so the portal could be a great place to store these activities. This would also allow Bungie to use the Director tab again, which is a far more recognizable system to any Destiny player. I'm sure there are more changes and ideas that Bungie can apply to these systems, but I think these would be great starting points. Overall, I do think the game is in a rough spot, but I also believe that Bungie is making the correct strides to make Destiny fun again. I do believe a part of the reason why Destiny has hit rock bottom in terms of its player count is because there's no new content for players to interact with. And with the new Destiny expansion around the corner, I'd imagine this would drive numbers up again. With everything that I've talked about in this video, I hope Bungie does see the positive reception from this most recent update, while also keeping a stern eye on the newly arising problems. That being said, if you feel there are other issues Destiny is suffering from, or want to stress something I didn't cover in this video, then drop a comment below, and while you're down there, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. If you want more content from me, then check out my social media platforms linked below, or click the video on screen now to learn the best loadout for Epic Desert Perpetual. I'm SniperKH, and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.